What's up everybody, Blizzard has just announced Mage talent tree changes coming in the next Dragonflight Alpha build. This includes a large redesign to the core class tree and reorganization to the Arcane tree. So let's go through this together and take a look at some of the new changes. First things first, we've got Reflection. Teleports you back to where you last blinked, only usable within 8 seconds of blinking, and has a 45-second cooldown. So this is kind of a return of a spell that Arcane previously had, which was called Displacement. Pretty similar effect, so cool to see. Volatile Detonation greatly increases the effect of Blast Wave's knockback. Blast Wave's cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. Time Manipulation, casting Fire Blast or Ice Lance on frozen targets, or Arcane Missiles reduces the cooldown of your loss of control abilities by 1 or 2 seconds. When your barrier receives melee attacks, you have a 10% chance to be granted 1 Fire Blast, 1 Fingers of Frost, or 1 Clear Casting Charge. Casting your barrier removes all snare effects. So these spells are not that impactful. However, it's definitely more interesting than the first iteration of the general talent tree. One thing I'd like to see on the talent trees is either the removal of Greater Invis from the general tree, or the addition of Cold Snap and Cauterize to the general tree. Reason being that Fire and Frost can both take their spec-specific defensive and also take Greater Invis, whereas Arcane can only take Greater Invis, and that's it. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency between the 3 specs. Either allow all 3 specs to choose one of those defensives, or just keep the defensives spec specific. So that's what I'd like to see. Anyways, let's move on to the Arcane tree. We have Arcane Bombardment reduced to max 1 rank down from 2. Arcane Echo reduced also to max 1 rank down from 2. So basically we're just getting 2 free talent points. Arcane Surge now grants a burst of mana on cast, so the player can immediately start casting Arcane Blast. This is a great quality of life change. Previously, when you casted Arcane Surge, you would end up with 0 mana and 1 clear casting charge, so your only option there was to just use that clear casting charge. However, now you get a free burst of mana, which allows you to cast Arcane Blast, so that gives you some more options after casting Arcane Surge, and it's just, in general, a good change. Arcane Orb moved up the tree, and is now available before the first gate, directly after Arcane Missiles. This is perfect. Arcane Mages have been asking to have Arcane Orb baseline for the longest time, and now it pretty much is baseline. It's all the way at the top of the tree, and directly after Arcane Missiles, so Arcane Orb is baseline. That's a huge win, right? Rule of 3 is now a choice node with Arcane Familiar. This choice node has swap places with Arcane Tempo. To be honest, I'd rather just have Rule of 3s removed completely from the trees. This is a DPS loss if you pick it. Basically, it makes it so that when you generate your 3rd charge, your next Arcane Blast or Arcane Missiles costs no mana. And if you're not spending mana, then you're also not generating clear casting charges. So this is a DPS loss. Either rework it or just remove it from the tree, but it also basically is removed from the tree, right? It's a choice node now, so if you just get to this choice node, you just pick Arcane Familiar every single time, and you never have to deal with Rule of 3s. So that's probably what will happen unless it gets changed. Evocation. Cooldown reduced to 90 seconds, down from 120 seconds. This is a good change. Evocation now lines up with every single Arcane Surge, so when you pair that with Siphon Storm, we get that huge intellect buff from Siphon Storm every single Arcane Surge, so our 90-second bursts, the AP bursts, are going to be huge. Improved Evocation is just cut. It's just now baseline with Evocation. That's pretty cool. Charged Orb, now available after unlocking the first gate. Charged Orb grants Arcane Orb 1 additional charge. So this is pretty nice, right? So we're going to have Arcane Orb baseline, basically, and a very accessible way to add a 2nd charge to Arcane Orb. So that is pretty cool. Assuming the playstyle is kind of the same to how it plays now, you won't really see that much of a gain with Charged Orb and single target, because we use Arcane Orb on cooldown pretty much, and we would be using it at a faster rate than it would be recharging, so you won't really notice that big of a gain. However, in Mythic Plus, where there's downtime between pulls, it'll give Arcane Orb that chance to regenerate in charges. So pretty cool spell, and it's just nice to see. Our Orb Barrage, converted to a single node, was previously a choice node with Charged Orb, now also reduces the cooldown of Arcane Orb by 2 seconds when clear casting is consumed. So this is interesting, right? So this gives an avenue for potentially a new build for Arcane, which would be more of a sustained damage build. You pretty much take any talent that buffs arcane missiles, and you take Orb Barrage, and it's kind of like an orb weaving playstyle where you're like spamming arcane missiles and weaving in arcane orbs in between like the spams. So pretty interesting. It gives us a new playstyle to play around with. Not sure if it'll be competitive, but definitely something that you can see it can be built. Nether Tempest. Position on the tree has moved towards the center of the talent tree as a choice node with Reverberate, blah blah blah. This, we'll just look at it tomorrow when the Dragonflight talent calculator gets updated on Wowhead. Conjure Mana Gem now restores 25% mana up from 10% mana, and now grants 5% increased spell power for 10 seconds baseline. So it's just a flat buff to Conjure Mana Gem. That's pretty cool, I guess. Cascading Power now grants up to 2 stacks of clear casting when consuming a Mana Gem previously granted spell power. This is a good change. So regular Arcane, right, not Kyrian Arcane, regular Arcane, whenever it wants to set up a Touch of the Magi burst, 10 to 15 seconds beforehand, it's spamming Arcane Blast at 4 Arcane charges and just fishing for clearcasting procs. Now, the problem with this is that sometimes you can just spend half of a mana bar and not get a single clearcasting proc, and then your Touch of the Magi burn is very lackluster. So this solves that problem, because now you have a way to just like on demand give you 2 stacks of clearcasting. So that is a buff to regular Arcane. Potentially can open up a new playstyle, especially if you pick every single Arcane Missiles talent that can buff it. So pretty cool to see. We'll see how that impacts potential builds. Enlightened moved lower into the tree. Resonance moved to Enlightened's previous position, and Presence of Mind cooldown reduced to 45 seconds, down from 60 seconds. This is pretty cool. So now we have Presence of Mind in every single burn. We have it in our mini burns and in our AP burns with Arcane Surge. So that is pretty cool. Now, like, you know, our spells are now lining up better with like Presence of Mind now lines up well, Evocation now lines up well. Like a lot of these spells are now molded to fit and synergize better with the Touch of the Magi cadence. So that's all cool to see, and that's pretty much it for today's changes. I'm sure we'll see more changes in the next coming weeks, especially as more alpha builds come out and more iterations are done on the trees. But until then, stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't. I'll be, releasing these kinds of videos anytime there's anything newsworthy. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.